Hey guys, it's Ian Lives, and welcome back to another ranking video. Now, there's been this new trend that I'm seeing on Instagram and on other social platforms. This new thing called Summerween that everybody's doing this year, which is basically you're celebrating Halloween in the summertime. So I thought I would participate by ranking the Halloween franchise. Now, this franchise is iconic, and I kind of had to start ranking these iconic franchises because you guys like the franchise rankings, they get views. So I thought, why not start doing some of the more iconic ones? So recently, I just rewatched the entire Halloween franchise, all 13 films, and we're going to be ranking them from worst to best. Now, before we start, I do have to say that this may get people unsubscribed from me. This video will have some of my hottest takes ever, and it's probably my weirdest, wackiest ranking ever. Honestly, there's some weird opinions in here. These movies are very strange to me, the ones that I like and the ones I dislike. Starting off at number 13, the bottom of the barrel, is going to be Halloween Resurrection. Now, this is the sequel to H2O. Resurrection is where they try to merge in found footage into a Halloween film, which doesn't completely work. You have this reality show where they have these people that are going to be having cameras and they're going to be spending the night in the Myers house. And this show is it's hosted by Busta Rhymes, which has one of the worst performances I've ever seen in here. This movie's over the top ridiculous. It has horrible dialogue, horrible characters. You're not rooting for anybody, not even Michael Myers, because his mask looks ridiculous in this movie. There's hilarious scenes that are definitely iconic and memorable, like Busta Rhymes being dressed up as Michael Myers. But honestly, it is a horrible movie. It's not a good movie at all. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, honestly. I know a lot of people, when they think of Resurrection, they're like, oh, that movie sucks. That's one of the worst horror movies I've ever seen. I don't personally think that. I think that there's been much worse than Halloween Resurrection, but definitely my least favorite of the Halloween franchise. So, moving on to number 12. This one will already make people mad, probably, because this is a lot of people's favorite in the franchise, and I've tried several times to give this movie a chance because I really want to enjoy it. And I'm talking about Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. This one basically, it's the return to form for the Halloween franchise after Halloween 3 bombed in theaters because everyone wanted Michael. They bring Michael back, and they also introduce Jamie in here, the little girl. I never really cared for Jamie in this movie. I'll talk about that more. But also, what was her name? Rachel? The main blonde is one of the most boring characters ever. Like, she's just not interesting to me at all. I know a lot of people love her, but she's just not an interesting final girl. Don't know why they decided to choose her as the final girl. Beats me. They also get rid of Jamie Lee Curtis. She's no longer in here, and they actually kill off her character off screen, which was kind of stupid and messy. And it's very cheesy. This is probably the cheesiest movie of the franchise. The opening scene with Loomis and Michael in the auto shop is so ridiculous. There's just explosions, and Loomis is obviously over the top in this movie, which is how I like my Dr. Loomis. I like him when he's screaming and shaking Jamie around. That's my Loomis. And he probably is the best thing about this movie. There's no memorable kills. Michael is not in it enough. His mask is kind of silly looking. I didn't like the whole nightmare gimmick where Jamie was having these nightmares. Again, there's some cool scenes, but it's just not what I'm going to watch when I want to watch a Halloween film. And it definitely is a low for me in the franchise. I still think it's just a below average movie. I'm not saying it's horrible. And I can understand why some people like it because it is pretty close to the style as 1 and 2, which are just beloved. So that was my number 12, Halloween 4. Number 11 is going to be Rob Zombie's Halloween, the first one. Now, this movie I actually watched this a lot. I'm not sure why, but even though I've never been huge on this. Now, this rewatch kind of changed my mind. I used to like the first half and dislike the second half. Not saying I like, because you know a lot of people don't like how they explain Michael's backstory. I just thought it was really well acted and well made at the time. On rewatch, I almost found it unbearable. That first hour is almost unbearable. And then the second hour is basically a shot for shot remake of the original, which, to be honest, doesn't completely work. It's fine. I mean, it's fine. It's not terrible. Scout Taylor Compton isn't great in this movie, in my opinion. She gets a lot better in Halloween 2, which we'll talk about soon. So, I don't know. I'm not a fan of what's his name. I can't think of his name, as Loomis. To be honest, the only Loomis I like, the only doctor character I will ever like in the Halloween franchise will be Donald Pleasance. Every single time that they tried to touch that character, which we'll talk about again, but every single time that they've tried to touch that character, they actually butcher it. This movie's very mixed for me. It's hard to even explain my thoughts on Rob Zombie's Halloween because there's elements I like. I like how it feels like an 80s movie. It's very grindhousey, which Rob Zombie loves. And the soundtrack is great, and there's some great kills and gore. And that ending shot is really nice when Scout Taylor Compton is screaming. But there's so much of this movie that is nearly unwatchable. The dialogue is so over the top, even for Rob Zombie. Number 10 is going to be Halloween Kills. Now, Halloween Kills is a movie I only watched once around when it came out, and I didn't remember much about it. So I've been meaning to check it out again for a long time because it seems like people are coming around to this movie. I've heard a lot of praise about it recently, saying that it's actually a really good slasher and feels like an homage to 80s slashers. So after rewatch, it was okay. There's a lot of flaws here. There's a lot of annoying problems. There's a lot of over-the-top, obnoxious things that happen in this movie, which I'll talk about in a second. But I do appreciate the gore and kills in this movie. There are some kills in here that are definitely at the top when it comes to this franchise. Amazing kills and amazing practical effects. That's something I will applaud David Gordon Green on doing. If there is a bunch of CGI, it's not super noticeable. There are some shots that have CGI blood, but it seems like mostly practical. So I do applaud him for that. And again, the gore is fantastic. There's kills where someone's head is in between like a railing on stairs, and they're getting like this in between the railing. It's just gnarly. Like the light, where he takes the light down and he breaks it and stabs the girl in the neck. There's a bunch of memorable kills and scenes in here. This script is super messy. Obviously, it follows straight after the 2018 film, where Laura's in the hospital and Michael is in the burnt down building. He kills all the firefighters, which is also another great segment. The beginning's very promising, the beginning of this film. Because you also get this shot that goes back to the 1978. And it looks great. It looks and feels like the 78 film. And you also even get a Donald Pleasance look-alike, which I thought they did fantastic. Unless they deep-faked him. It was hard to tell, but I thought it looked great. I thought that whole segment looked great. It's toward the middle and end when they start to introduce this mob that's trying to kill Michael Myers. The whole Tommy Doyle thing that they do, where evil dies tonight. It was very hokey in a bad way. It was very annoying, very obnoxious, very unrealistic. And the way things progress in the final act felt so rushed and uncompleted, it was insane. You get this mob who goes to Michael Myers. They all jump him, right? And you think that they're beating Michael Myers, and then it cuts to Michael Myers just stabbing a couple of them. But then you don't see where that ends. I don't know, it felt very rushed. And then also, I won't spoil it in case you haven't seen it, but a character dies, a pretty prominent character dies, and it felt very unnecessary and hodgepodged in. Like, they needed a big character to die in this movie because they didn't kill off one of their main characters yet or something. I don't know. It's literally in the final 2 minutes of the movie, and it's like, why? Why did she die? Why did that happen? So I don't know. I'm very mixed. Another one where I'm just very mixed on it. There's things I love about Halloween Kills, but there's also a lot of things I don't like about it. Number 9 is going to be Halloween 6. What is this one called? The Curse of Michael Myers. This is where they introduce the Thorn plot line, where you have this whole cult thing. Now, this is a movie I've seen once before, and I didn't like it at all. On rewatch, I thought it was pretty good. It has that kind of grainy, straight-to-VOD style. I know it wasn't straight-to-VOD, but it has that style to it. Paul Rudd's in it. He's very young. He's very unexperienced. Not a great actor in here. I love Dr. Loomis in this movie. He's retired. He's very laid back with his little sweater. This was also his last performance before Donald Pleasence passed away. So this is the last time that we've ever seen Dr. Loomis on screen. And I enjoyed most of this movie. It's very slow and it's very uneventful, to say the least. There's not a lot going on. The kill count's not very high. There's not a lot of action going on. It's more built on suspense and mystery and unraveling this whole Thorn plotline. But I thought most of the stuff they did was pretty interesting. So I enjoy Halloween 6 enough. I think it's an okay movie. Number 8 is going to be Halloween H2O 20 Years Later. Now, this is the first movie since the second Halloween in 81 to have Laurie Strode in it, Jamie Lee Curtis. She returns to reprise her role. And this one feels like your typical Scream era slasher. It's focused on teen characters. They're all good looking and all attractive. It's at a school. It's very Scream-esque. And it was very interesting watching the documentary on this because it was almost even more Scream influenced, because there was supposed to be a whodunit aspect where it wasn't actually Michael Myers, it was a copycat killer. And it was supposed to be Charlie, I think was his name. The kid that was friends with the main character. This is a good Halloween movie. I wouldn't go any higher than that. I would give it like a 3.5. There's things I really enjoy about it. It's your typical slasher. It's your typical 90s slasher. It's 90s as hell. And there's good moments again. There really is. But there's this moment toward the end where LL Cool J, he's in it, by the way. Laurie Strode knocked down Michael. And she has the knife, right? And she's going to stab him in the head. And he stops her and says, "Don't do that. He's already dead." I don't understand why you wouldn't want her to stab Michael again. I mean, it's Michael Myers. Don't you want to make sure he's dead? And obviously that doesn't go well because the whole second half happens. So I always think that scene is just stupid and ridiculous. It's just a dumb way to continue the movie. And I really do like the ending where she cuts off Michael Myers' head, which I actually thought was a pretty good way to explain that ending in Resurrection. I thought Resurrection did a damn good job with saying that it wasn't actually Michael, it was some guy dressed in Michael's outfit, because Michael, did something to his throat to where he can't speak, and he put him in his costume. And it was a very interesting twist, and I that's the one thing that Resurrection did right. But yeah, H2O is a good movie. It's your typical run-of-the-mill 90s slasher. Number 7 is going to be Halloween 2018, or what I wish it was called, Halloween H40, 40 years later. Don't know why the hell they didn't call it that, considering it came out 20 years after H2O, but I actually really enjoy Halloween 2018. I always have. I think it's a damn good reboot. And you'll see soon, I actually enjoy the new trilogy quite a bit. I think it's some of the best stuff that Blumhouse has done, because I'm not a huge Blumhouse guy at all. But Halloween 2018 ignores all the sequels and is a straight sequel to the original Halloween film. And it has really inventive kills in here. It has good characters. They're very well written. It kind of does the same thing that H2O did, where they kind of splice in humor. It's very lighthearted in that sense. It's not a very dark, heavy movie like some of the original movies are, which doesn't always work for the movie's sake, but most of the time it works. There's some really good scenes, really good segments. The final act is pretty damn good. The middle act is pretty damn good. I would actually say this whole movie is pretty damn good. I love the look of Michael Myers. Yeah, there's not too much more to say about it. One thing I really don't like, again, as I mentioned before, they try to throw in this new doctor character who is clearly trying to replace Loomis. He has an English accent. He is yelling constantly. And, yeah, he was just not doing it for me. Thankfully, they kill him off pretty early in the movie. But he was not doing anything for me at all, by any means. So that was probably my least favorite thing about the movie. There's also some plot holes, but that you're gonna get that in slashers. That's just bound to happen, and it's not something that's gonna bother my overall experience of the movie. So Halloween 2018 is at number 7. Number 6 is going to be Halloween 3: Season of the Witch. Now this is a movie I've never been extremely positive on. I thought it was okay for a long time, and it was never a movie that I ever rewatched. It was probably my least rewatched movie of the franchise. On rewatch, I loved it a lot, and I think mainly it's because since then I've watched a lot of 80s movies. I love Tom Atkins. I have a huge appreciation for him, and this feels like most of the 80s movies that were coming out during that time, and it stars Tom Atkins. It's a very good mystery horror film that has a great concept that ages like fine wine, because it could happen today and I would not be surprised. The masks are iconic. The little jingle is iconic. This movie's really solid. And I don't know why it took me this long to realize that, because, you know, a lot of people love Halloween 3. And I don't love it, but I do think it's a great movie, and it's 80s as hell, which works for me. But yeah, I love Halloween 3. I just said I didn't love it. I'm all over the place today, guys. It's hot. It's like 90 degrees in here. But Halloween 3, what was that? Number 6 is Halloween 3. Number 5 is going to make people mad. It seems like this movie is very divisive. It's either people love it or people hate it. I'm talking about Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. I love this movie. This movie's great. It's a very artsy, extremely grindhouse Halloween film. It's very grainy, and it feels like an 80s horror film. There's a lot of montages with old music over top of it, which 80s movies did a lot. The characters are better acted in here. They have better storylines. I love Brad Dourif in here. He's fantastic. I actually really like Scout Taylor Compton's performance in here, and her character arc is really nice. Michael Myers is intimidating as hell, probably some of the scariest we've seen him in the whole entire franchise. I love the look of his mask. He has great kills. There's amazing gore in here, amazing practical effects. The opening scene's fantastic, where they try to recreate Halloween 2, the original one, and I think they did a damn good job. It's very brutal. And a lot of people don't like the white horse symbolism, which I feel like I have to talk about. I love the white horse thing. I think it's very smart and creative. In my eyes, I take it as this is what Michael sees. This is what makes him stronger. He sees his mom in that white horse because the mom gave him the white horse. So that's just a symbolism for his mom. And also his younger self. And they basically hold his hand while he does all these killings. And that's what makes him so strong. That's how I took the whole symbolism. And some people just didn't understand it. And that's understandable, but I really like that inclusion. I thought it was extremely different. And yeah, sure, it's weird. I think it's more artsy, horror type. And again, some shit that you would probably see in 80s movies. Because 80s horror could be extremely weird. Also, some people don't like the pacing of this movie. A lot of this, it takes a long time for Michael Myers to start doing killings. But I also appreciated the hell out of that, because they focus on Michael before Halloween, where he's walking through these fields and he's just running into people and killing them. He's just making his way to Haddonfield, and I thought it was very fun. So yeah, I love Halloween 2. I absolutely love it. I think Rob Zombie did great with that movie, and I think the main reason why he did so great is he basically had a blank canvas. He wasn't ordered or told to remake the 1981 Halloween 2. He was basically told and ended up doing his own thing, which I think worked for the better. Number 4 is also going to make probably more people mad than any of the other ones on this list. Because this one is probably the most disliked out of the whole franchise, next to Resurrection. Some people say that this movie makes Resurrection look like a masterpiece, which is far-fetched to me. I'm talking about Halloween Ends. This is my number 4. Dude, it shocked me on rewatch. I absolutely loved my time with it. On first watch, which was back when it came out, I thought it was okay. I didn't hate it like most people. But on rewatch, I thought it was great. Again, I'm liking the Halloween movies that go in a different direction. They take things very differently. It's not your typical Halloween movie. It's very different. I wouldn't call this one extremely artsy, but it's very different, where Michael Myers puts his evil into somebody else, and they end up turning into Michael Myers, basically. Now, it does kind of fumble the bag a little bit toward the end, I won't lie, when the new character gets killed off. And the movie doesn't really do much after that character's killed off. It kind of goes back into its old habit, its old typical, Laurie Strode fighting Michael Myers type thing. But the whole movie up until then is fantastic. It's a great character studies. You guys know I love character studies that show people going crazy and insane. Some of my favorite movies are like that, like Maniac and Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, which obviously don't compare to this movie at all because those are classics. But Halloween Ends, I think, is damn good. I really do. I think it's because people had this too high of standards because it's supposed to end the Halloween franchise. We know damn well it's going to come back soon. But it's supposed to conclude everything. The whole entire franchise. Like, what? Like, almost like 50 years of movies. It's supposed to conclude it. And I think that it pissed a lot of people off that Michael was kind of treated as nothing in this movie. He gets tossed around in a lot of scenes. But that's because he's weak, okay? He's weak because he hasn't killed in a number of years. So I think it was really well done. I enjoy Halloween Ends a lot. It's very, I don't want to say grindhouse, but it feels very retro with the lighting and the whole radio tower thing with the radio station feels very retro. But yeah, I love the new additions that they tried with this. The final act is a little messy. I like the part with the junkyard. That's a great scene. But yeah, I think it's overall really, really, really good. I love Halloween Ends. That's very controversial that I have that high. Number 3 is going to be Halloween 2. This is a damn good sequel. It's one of the best horror sequels ever made. Horror part 2s. I know some people call like part 5 sequels. What I mean is like part 2s. It only really compares to like Evil Dead 2 and Aliens. But I love this movie. I love the hospital setting to it. I love the kills. I love the hospital, like the doctor characters. They're very funny. They have good lines. They're very campy. And yeah, there's great scenes in this movie. Again, not much to say because it kind of follows the same formula as the first movie. Speaking of, number 2 is going to be the one that started it all. Halloween. Yes, this is at my number 2. Even though this is probably the second greatest horror movie of all time, next to Texas Chainsaw, in my opinion, it's not my favorite, which is what I base these rankings on, which one I enjoyed more. But this is probably one of the best horror movies ever made. It started, it basically revolutionized horror. It started horror. It basically created it. Without this movie, horror would not be what it is today. Well, it's more like without Black Christmas, we wouldn't have Halloween. Because I think that's what John Carpenter said that was his biggest influence, which is really cool. Laurie Strode is so iconic. Michael Myers is probably the most iconic horror character ever. He is the most iconic horror character ever. There's no doubt about that. Everybody knows who Michael Myers is. And everybody knows who John Carpenter is. And, like, this movie is just fantastic. The fall aesthetics are great. The suburban aesthetics are great. It is very slow. That's my biggest problem with it. I'm not a huge slow burn guy. And a lot of John Carpenter's movies are very slow. Some work better than others. The pacing here in some scenes is a little hard to sit through, but that's really my only complaint with this movie. I think, again, it's one of the greatest of all time. But my favorite of the Halloween franchise is going to be number 1, Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, which is most people's least favorite. And I love this movie. It's one of my favorite slashers of all time. I don't know what it is about it that's so different than some of the other movies in this franchise, but I love Jamie in here. I love that she can see Michael in real time, and I love Loomis. He's just off the rocker crazy in this movie. And Danielle Harris actually said that he was drunk, which makes sense because he's just shaking her around. Tell me where he is. It's great though. I love this movie. I think it's fantastic. I really do. I love the other kid, Billy. Great chemistry with Jamie. I'm trying to think of what else I can talk about. It's hard to talk about these movies for a long time because they're slashers, and there's not a bunch to talk about. I love the barn scene. You get great kills in here. I actually really do enjoy Michael's mask. I love the scene where he goes in Tina's car with that crazy looking mask on. It's a great looking mask, very scary. I love Tina as a character. I'm glad they killed off Rachel because, again, I wasn't a huge fan of her. And I think Tina, which most people hate, but I love, she's very funny. She's very obnoxious, but it works for the movie. And she's a good replacement for Rachel overall. And there's a damn good finale to this movie. I think Halloween 5 is great. I don't see any issues with it whatsoever. I don't know why people don't like it. I really can't put my finger on it. I know some people don't like that Jamie can't talk. They don't like Tina. None of that stuff bothers me. I think it's very campy and fun. And I just get the most fun out of this movie. And again, it's one of my favorite slashers of all time. Halloween 5 will always be one of those movies where I'm like, why don't people like this movie? Why do people hate this movie? Because I absolutely love it. So that was my Halloween ranking. Very weird. I know that. It's definitely not what most people's movie ranking of this franchise is going to be. I tend to like all the ones that people consider bad. Like Halloween Ends, Halloween 2, and Halloween 5, but what can I say? If you guys enjoy the video, please subscribe to my channel and turn on the bell. It supports me a lot. Follow my Discord server in the link in the description below. Follow my Instagram at IanLives_. Follow my Letterboxd at wehateian. And I love you guys. I will see you guys next time. Let me know what you thought of my ranking. Peace.